guys, welcome to the JazzGuitarLessons.net vlog. I'm Mark from JazzGuitarLessons.net, and I had this idea yesterday while drinking, well, you know me, I was drinking strong coffee and reading books in a coffee shop locally. I have conversations with myself. Basically, there's a thing that came to mind I wanted to share with you, and basically it's a commonality between all the players that are attempting to learn jazz guitar. And by this, to determine if this is for you or not, is if you are a guitarist, so you can probably play blues, rock, pop, or whatever, top 40, or even country or bluegrass. If you are doing that, but you are not yet fully versed in having a jazz vocabulary, so it means maybe you improvise a little, but you're not all the way there to making the changes. You're not all the way there to knowing a bunch of standards or playing chord melody or jazz comping, right? So that's for you guys that are going, I'm trying to learn that language, and I'm not sure how to do it. So I found one common element in between everybody in that situation, and I'll get in detail with this in this vlog. Welcome to my world, by the way. You've seen a bit of the studio. It's gonna get a bit chilly up here in Canada. You'll see more and more with my sweaters. Here's what I was thinking. One way to describe when you get to learning jazz is that you are going to see it's a totally different language. So even if you're very good, even professional at blues, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll come with jazz and learn it like this. I've seen videos of Gary Moore, the great jazz blues guitarist, and he's been developing his jazz vocabulary for a few years now. So there's this point where you have to learn the idioms, you have to learn a different way of addressing the music. Not any better anyway, it's just a different thing. So my favorite analogy to describing this phenomenon is, say I'm French, right? I know French, then I learned English, and then say I would learn Spanish. But then I go to Korea to learn Korean. It's totally different thing. It's different, or Japanese, or a totally different alphabet, totally different principle. So that's what jazz is for musicians that are already guitarists, but want to become jazz players. So it's okay. It's going to be difficult. It's a tall challenge, but it is doable. So here's a tip I want to give you. Amongst all my students at all levels of any programs I've done in the past, there's one common element you can apply that's going to make a huge difference, and it's the focus. People say, oh yeah, Mark, it's very corny, tell me to focus. Well, it's no. In a way that I've addressed in other old videos, most musicians will practice like this, and it's probably be effective up to that point. Pick a piece and work on something I will call A for a day, and then the next day work on B, and then on C, and then on D, and maybe come back to A, and maybe the C and B and A again, and this and that. While the real way to master jazz, or anything difficult for that matter, is stick to a certain challenge until you've mastered it. And you remember, there was a whiteboard, I wrote this on the board in some of my old videos, say you have to do A. Okay, I got A. Then you have to do B, C, D, etc. Because if you look at the other way of doing it, the way you do A for a day and then B and C and come back to A and come back, it would take you 10, 20, 30 days until you see letter A enough times to master it. And that's totally counterproductive, and that's totally going on a tangent. And I'll give you really practical advice on how to do this in this video later on. That's what I call focus. It is looking at something and realizing, so step one for this, if you're totally new to jazz, whatever, step one, reset your expectations. So whatever you're looking at, it might be a lick, it might be a solo you're transcribing, it might be comping, it might be a comping study. I love working with comping studies with the Galbraith stuff with my students, you know that from this channel. You're confronted with a piece, look at it, and whatever your mind said, like the brain says, you're going to master it in X amount of time, just 10x that. Look at this and know that it's going to take way more time. Not just double, but way more time than you expect. I'll give you an example, because that's how I work with my coaching people, my one-on-one, right? This week, this is due. They film it, and then they send it, and then I go, yes, check this out. So one thing that's going to happen, if instead of investing 10x of time on one thing, so instead of investing 10 weeks, you will invest 1 week. Or instead of 10 days, you will invest 1 day. What's going to happen is that you're going to skim. You look at that comping study, and you learn the chord shapes, kind of. And maybe you don't have the phrasing, the articulation, you're not playing in the right rhythm. So that's what happens when they send a video to me and go, hey, that's not what's written. That's not the right rhythm. That's on beat 4. That's not on beat 2. That's not, So that's that level of grit for you to get the maximum benefit and to actually learn something. Because once you do that, you're climbing up a step. And then you'll climb another step, another step, another step, instead of noodling and just playing the things you already know. So here's a step. You might do this without a coach, even without anybody. Once you're working on something, take your phone. That's my phone. Take your phone, shoot yourself playing it 2 or 3 times, then sit down, watch, and be a good judge. Don't be too harsh, but be critical in a reasonable way. Say, oh yeah, you think, maybe I'm trying to play too fast. I can't play it at that speed. Maybe I'm missing a note. Maybe I could figure out a certain other fingering. Just be very self-thought. Be self-thought about that submission. It's gonna work wonders. And now tell yourself this, like, of all the video here, of all my blabbering, the number one thing you can do is decide on one thing that you will work on. Reset your expectations. Know that you will have to work on it longer. Get feedback on it from an instructor or from yourself and go, oh, I think I can do better. And from that day on until you have mastered it, like 80-20, like, you're 80% of the way there. It's not perfect yet, but you're pretty good. And until you have mastered it, anything else you do is a distraction. That's what focus is about. Anything else. Yes, but I always warm up with, I always do this. Oh, I found this new book. I got a magazine. There's a link. I look at the blog. I looked at this blog. I looked at this video. Forget about this. Commit yourself to that one thing. Write it on a piece of paper. Put it right on your practice desk or in your music stand or on top of your amp, or stick it to the guitar. Say, this is what I'm working on now. And that's grit. You don't end this. Don't remove this until you know you can take that and play in your sleep. So you have to bring your jazz vocabulary up to that point where there's no doubt that you're executing perfectly. And that piles on. So that's a story. That's a story of focus, of sticking to one thing. And here's why, in closing, why I tell you that this is the commonality between all of my students. Because it's interesting, I get guys that have not mastered the jazz vocabulary yet. They want to, they haven't. They've started, they've failed, or they're missing something, and then they get in touch with me, which is tremendous because that's my work and I love it. These guys, some of them are really good with soloing, but they're comping so-so. Or vice versa. They comp super well, but they can't really play scale super well. But these two players, or guys that have gaps in their playing in different places, they all have that same problem. It's the problem of not focusing on one thing, not long enough at least to make a change, and always moving on too fast, and always assuming that whatever's in front of them is less work than it actually is. It's pretty hard. I'm not sugarcoating it. You have to invest time. If you are an English speaker or French like me and you go to Japan to learn Japanese, it's pretty hard. That being said, please get in touch. There's the jazzguitarlessons.net website. There's this YouTube channel. Please subscribe and hit the bell if you want more lessons. There's hundreds more lessons here that I put in video and blog formats. On the blog, we have the free sheet music. You can click and download it. So it's fantastic. There's a way to work with me directly, and there's a program, Jazz Guitar Mastery. And this is all my method for teaching, but the technique, not just the blabbering, but actually how to learn the chords, the chord melody, the standards, etc. And I will see you soon on the website, jazzguitarlessons.net. Improve your jazz guitar playing with a real teacher. Take care. Thank you, guys.